I always considered myself a good father. My days were spent working at a Xerox company, while my wife, Claudia, held down the fort at home. Our pride and joy was our son, Adam, a bright and inquisitive boy who brought endless laughter into our lives. But one experience with our new neighbors would shake our world and make me question the kind of father I truly was. It was a typical summer evening when we decided to host our annual backyard party. Our invitation list included all the neighbors, just like every year. However, this time, a new family had moved into the house directly behind ours. Alan and Emma were their names, and they appeared to be the picture of health and normalcy. They had a son named Dustin, roughly the same age as Adam. The adults quickly settled into conversations, sharing tales of daily office work and neighborhood gossip. Alan and I struck up a casual friendship, bonding over the mundanities of our jobs. Meanwhile, Claudia and Emma indulged in their own lively chatter. But it was Dustin who caught my attention, and not in a pleasant way. There was something peculiar about the way he looked, a strange glint in his eyes that didn't match the cheerful atmosphere of the party. He and Adam seemed to steer clear of each other, which struck me as odd given Adam's friendly nature. As the night wore on, I couldn't help but notice that Adam was becoming increasingly nervous and skittish around Dustin. When Claudia and I asked Adam if he'd had fun playing with Dustin, he responded, "I don't want to play with him, Dustin is bad." His words sent a chill down my spine, and I exchanged an alarmed look with Claudia. We scolded Adam, telling him not to make baseless judgments about other kids, thinking it was just a minor misunderstanding. Days turned into weeks, and Adam's complaints about Dustin escalated. He insisted that Dustin would peer at him from his bedroom window at night. Claudia and I were skeptical. Every time we went to check, Dustin was nowhere to be seen in his window. Then came the night that would forever haunt us. We were jolted awake by Adam's piercing scream, echoing through our house. Claudia and I raced to his room, and what we saw left us paralyzed with terror. There, in the corner of Adam's room, stood Dustin, gripping a toy gun and urging Adam to come with him for bird hunting. It was a surreal and chilling sight. We immediately called Alan and Emma, who arrived in a state of panic. That's when Emma tearfully revealed that Dustin had been grappling with severe mental health issues, which explained his bizarre and disturbing behavior. Alan was profusely apologetic for his son's actions, but the damage had been done. In the days that followed, our neighbors decided to move away, no doubt in part due to the unsettling incident. As they left, I couldn't shake the guilt that consumed me. Why had I not believed my own son? Why had I dismissed his fears as baseless? The question that lingered in my mind was whether I truly deserved the title of a good father. Living in a quiet, dimly lit neighborhood had always suited my needs. As a 23-year-old music producer with dreams of making it big, my house was my sanctuary. It echoed with the beats and melodies of my work, a constant symphony that spilled out into the peaceful surroundings. Our neighborhood wasn't densely populated, so my loud music never drew any complaints. One day, as I headed out for my morning walk, I noticed something strange. An elderly man had taken residence in the house just across the road from mine. He sat on his porch, sipping his coffee and perusing the newspaper. His grumpy expression and the way he peered over the newspaper struck me as peculiar. It was the first time I had seen him, and an awkward feeling washed over me. I decided to ignore the odd sensation and continued my walk, hoping it was just a figment of my imagination. However, when I returned home, the elderly man had vanished from his porch. Instead, he stood across the road, leaning against the gate to my garden, as if trying to peer inside. I approached him, feeling a sense of unease. "Is there something I can do for you, sir?" I asked politely. The old man's gaze moved from my toes to my head, as if he were measuring my height. Without uttering a word, he turned and retreated into his house, a look of disgust etched across his face. Days turned into weeks, and I couldn't help but notice that the old man seemed to be constantly watching me. The feeling of unease grew stronger, and I decided to inquire about him within the neighborhood. That's when I met Davis, a 32-year-old man who had helped the elderly man rent the empty house. As Davis shared the old man's story, I felt a pang of sadness. The elderly man had lost his wife just a year ago. She had been brutally killed by an unknown crook who had broken into their home and stabbed her to death with a kitchen knife while the old man was out grocery shopping. Unable to bear the painful memories, the old man had sold their house, and the case had never been fully solved, as the police had failed to apprehend the culprit. My heart went out to the old man, and I decided to offer a small gesture of kindness. I prepared a fruit basket and went over to his house, even though he didn't seem too pleased by my visit. Later that night, as I lay in bed, a sense of guilt washed over me for ever doubting the old man's intentions. But then, things took a sinister turn. In the dead of night, I heard strange noises coming from the basement. Heavy footsteps echoed through the house. Fear gripped me as I rushed to lock the basement door. I dialed 911, trembling with fear as I waited for the police to arrive. They arrived swiftly, and what they discovered left me shivering. The old man had infiltrated my home, wielding a kitchen knife. He had entered through the basement window, which opened into the garden. When the police arrived, the old man was desperately trying to escape through the same window, but it was positioned awkwardly and proved to be his undoing. As they arrested him, the old man raged at me, blaming my loud music for his actions. It was a nightmarish ordeal that left me shaken to the core. 3 years have passed since that harrowing incident, but I still can't shake the feeling that the old man may have been the murderer of his own wife. Her fatal wounds had been inflicted by a kitchen knife, just like the one he had brought into my house. You know, looking back at my college days, I had quite the roller coaster of experiences. It all started when I decided to leave my small hometown of Salado in North Texas and head to Miami for further studies and, well, to soak up some of that wild Miami nightlife. Those first few weeks in Miami, I felt like I was on top of the world. I was hitting the clubs, partying like there was no tomorrow, and, yeah, indulging in a bit more than my fair share of hookups. But as the weeks went by, something started to catch up with me, the extra weight from the unhealthy lifestyle and excessive alcohol consumption. I knew I had to make some changes. So, I decided to join a gym that was conveniently located near the apartment I had rented. I was struggling to get back into shape when I met this guy named Jonathan. He offered to spot me during my workouts, which was a godsend at the time. We started talking, got to know each other, and eventually became good friends. Everything seemed normal until one day when things took a strange turn. Jonathan gave me this Hulk figurine and told me to place it by my bed. I thought it was an odd gift, but hey, I didn't think too much of it at the time. We continued hanging out, working out, and just having a good time. But then, out of nowhere, Jonathan started acting weird. He began trying to hold my hand and getting oddly romantic, and I couldn't help but feel seriously awkward about it. One day, while we were in the middle of a workout, Jonathan casually asked me, "What movie were you watching on your phone yesterday?" I was stunned. How in the world did he know that? I asked him how he found out, and he quickly changed the subject. That left me with a nagging feeling that something was off. After we finished our workout, I couldn't shake the suspicion. I decided to search the room, and that's when it hit me, that Hulk figurine he'd given me. I took a closer look at it and noticed a tiny camera lens concealed in the right eye. I was completely shocked and terrified, thinking about all the personal details he might have gathered. I didn't waste any time. I called 911 and spilled the beans about everything. The police swooped in, arrested Jonathan, and started investigating the situation. When they questioned him about why he'd done all of this, Jonathan finally confessed. He said he was gay and had fallen in love with me. But he knew I was straight, and that's why he started stalking me, watching my every move, trying to learn every detail of my life. It was a real punch to the gut to hear that. I mean, here was a guy who could have just been upfront with his feelings. We could have talked about it, tried to stay friends, maybe even work things out in a way that wasn't so creepy and invasive. But instead, he chose to spy on me, violating my privacy and making me feel unsafe in my own space. To this day, I can't help but wonder what might have happened if Jonathan had just been honest from the beginning. We might have had a chance to salvage our friendship. Instead, it turned into a memory I'd rather forget.